think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call. I think it was a wake-up call.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Celtics Talk Weekly. I am your host, Nick Franco. Alongside me is Rob Haytan, Ian Angelo, and Seamus Arlingo. And today we have a very special guest. You know him from NBCSN Boston, WEEI, has a podcast going with Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman in various supporting acting roles. Gary Tanguay, first and foremost, thank you for coming on today.
Nick, thanks for having me. Hey, everybody, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm super excited
Great,
about
Gary.
this.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's always excited to be asked.
So, Gary, you came into working for Boston right in the middle of the golden age, and you saw
Hang on, Nick. I started actually in Boston at EEI Radio in like '92.
Yeah, so
And it just, are you going to call that the golden age? Or you
No,
golden age of sports talk radio or
to-
golden age of sports?
the golden age of sports, and you got to see the birth of Boston. But I was going to start by saying that you got to see the city of Boston transition from Loserville, Rick Pitino saying Larry Bird isn't walking through those doors, into the premier championship city is today. As a reporter,
Well, you're right, and I should have cut you off. I'm sorry, but yes, that is correct. Because a lot of people, for a lot of us in sports media, no one knew who we were until like 2001.
Yeah,
That's when they were. Oh, wow, everybody's popularity soared at that point. So
Right.
yes, yeah. I mean, I saw the transition, and it was a religious experience because I had grown up in New England. I'm originally from Maine. I was there in '75. I watched the game on TV in '75 of the series when the Sox lost to the Reds. I remember when Mike Torres gave up the bomb, to Bucky Bleepin' Dent, all that stuff. All the things that you kids hear about from your grandparents or parents or whatever. I mean, I went through it all. '03 when the Red Sox lost. God bless him, wonderful man. Tim Wakefield, may he rest in peace, just a great guy. That whole thing. And then, when the Patriots won the Super Bowl, we didn't know what to do. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, you had the Celtics of the 80s, but, this was a whole new thing when the Patriots and Red Sox started winning.
Right. So I guess like dating back to that 2006-07 season with the Celtics when they were atrocious, right?
Yes.
I mean, they hadn't won in 20 years and it felt like there was no direction. That offseason, they shake everything up.
Right.
What was the pressure like during that year? Because you see something like this season, it's so much.
Yeah, I mean, the pressure was definitely on Doc. The pressure was definitely on Dan. I mean, you had new ownership, great owners, but they needed to win.
Right.
It was so bad. I think I did play-by-play for Mike Gorman 4 or 5 times that year because Mike was just like, I can't do this again. I need a day off. And I think it was it a 19-game losing streak they had?
I want to say 19. Yeah,
It was either 17 or 19. I always forget. I think it was 19. And Mike called in sick, and he just couldn't take it. And I did that 20th game that they won. I think they beat the Bucks. They broke the streak, and Doc Rivers said to me, "Gorman's out, Tanguay. You're in." Well, of course, obviously he was joking, but it sucked. And Pierce was wondering if he was going to get traded, and everybody was just down on the Celtics. And the pressure was on Boston because, like you said, and the Bruins too. I mean,
Right.
Jeremy Jacobs said when the Red Sox won, all bets were off. Teams had to pony up. I mean, he said that at Fenway Park when they had the whole, all the teams going there throwing out the first pitch and all that stuff. And when the trophy goes, when the Red Sox start winning, all of us have to win. And that didn't really impact the Patriots. And the Patriots, that happened earlier. But for the Celtics and the Bruins, they were feeling the heat. And I'll tell you, I remember when Danny was going through that process, I was around the Celtics a lot, obviously, and I would talk to Danny socially. And the Ray Allen deal went down. And he said to me, he goes, "We're not done." And the whole idea, and Danny had to swing for the fence on that. And we all know Trader Danny.
Right.
He had to swing for the fence on that because if you got Ray, well, obviously it wasn't enough. But if you got Ray and Paul, and then you go to KG, and of course McHale, Danny's buddy, was running the T-Wolves, and the T-Wolves had to blow it up. The idea of getting Ray was to get Kevin. And that was Danny's plan. And he was very patient, and he would say to us, and I think the deal went down in July, I think. He would say it for Garnett. He would say, "Just be patient, we'll be patient." I don't know if he knew he was going to pull it off, but that was the game plan.
Right.
And it brought the Celtics a championship. And if Garnett hadn't been hurt more, it would have brought him more than one.
Do you think there's any similarities to this season? Do you see any, or?
The only similarity I don't see is the desperation because they're younger. And I'm not saying that they're not trying hard. These guys are still kids. For Garnett, Ray, and Pierce, this was it. Like, they had done the endorsements. Garnett had made more money than anybody in the NBA. They had all been perennial all-stars. They had done everything but win a championship. So they were desperate, and they would do anything. I mean, they were focused every night. They played defense. I mean, is anybody playing defense in the NBA anymore? I mean, every time I look at these scores, I'm like, so the Celtics, and how could they? They're all still in their 20s. They just don't have that desperation of an old man. I think the Celtics can win it if Porzingis stays healthy. And I think the Celtics right now I think they have to become accustomed to everybody gunning for them. See, Garnett, Pierce, and Allen, they were already used to that. Like if you were Kevin Garnett or Paul Pierce around, you're going to work that night, and that your name is on the blackboard saying stop KG, stop Pierce, stop that. They've all been accustomed to that. Tatum, I think, is getting there. I think he's grown up a lot. But it's just age. It's just age and experience. That's the only thing that separates the two.
That's really interesting, Gary. First of all, I want to say it's an absolute honor to have you on our program here today. To have you here is just absolutely amazing. And I find it interesting that you said that team actually had more pressure or felt more pressure than today's team, because we actually had a question around how the media reaction was in regards to that team and every time they lost compared to today's team, because today's social media is so involved, and after every loss, it really seems like it's the end of the world. The other night against the Pelicans, we didn't lose that game, but even though we let them control the game for most of the night, coming off a loss that was absolutely horrendous against the Clippers, it felt like, is this really going to be the team this year? But really looking at the long scope of this team, they're as historically good as some of the best teams in NBA history. And I find it interesting that you said that team back in 08 had more pressure relative to today. But do you find the media scrutiny heightened today compared to in 2008 around the team?
No doubt. I mean, think about it. I'm sitting in my office, what used to be my daughter's playroom, who's now in college, and the five of us clowns are doing a talk show I'm doing it on my phone. So yes, it's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I hosted sports radio. And I mean, people would call in. Now people don't have to call in; they just blast it out. So there's no question that the pressure is heightened because of the. It's more vocal. I should be more clear. I feel the pressure on that 08 team came from within. As a member of the media, and we all talked about this, we thought, okay, their first year together, they're going to take time to gel. They'll win it the second year. We didn't think they were. We think win it the first year. There's going to be chemistry. And it's a good thing they won it because they didn't stay healthy the rest of the way. The pressure was put on by themselves. Garnett, Ray, Pierce, they wanted to win because they knew they were older. Right. So that was the pressure, I think. I think every professional athlete now has more scrutiny and pressure because of what we're doing and how we're doing it.
So essentially,
you're right about that. But I don't know. See, that's the one thing. That's the one thing you can't teach youth. Like the Celtics were in the finals and they lost. It's not an automatic.
Right.
It's not an automatic every year to go back. Now, if Porzingis isn't healthy, they should still go to the finals. If Porzingis isn't healthy, they should still go to the finals, in my opinion. But can they beat Denver without Porzingis? I don't think so.
We saw in that game on Friday, when you go away from him, he had 14 points in the first quarter, 13 points in the first quarter, I want to say. And then he finished the game with 21.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it. One of the things I think with this team, and it's all around the NBA, well, it's against Denver. They feel like in the final 2 minutes, I got to go to Tatum. I got to go to Tatum. I got to go to Tatum. Why not go to Porzingis and tie the game? We've talked about it on our podcast. The three, when they you can't live and die by the three. It's great that they shoot threes. Everybody does. But and they can be good at it. But when they're not falling, you got to go to the big guy. Like Tatum's got to go to the hoop. You got to go down low to Porzingis, and you got to get buckets. Because if you come down and just shoot up threes and you're missing, you're not working the defense. You need to work the defense and beat them up and go in low and get some twos, beat up the defense, and then maybe the threes will start falling. I think.
Is that a Missoula problem, you think, or is that a
I think it's an
player's
NBA problem. I think Tatum likes to do it. I think it's a Missoula problem because I think it's something that Brad Stevens liked to do.
Right.
Because if you look at the math, right? I mean, 3 is more than 2.
Right.
But I think they need to adjust. I think it's an organizational philosophy, and I think they need to adjust it.
Yeah, we've heard that term a lot over the years.
What, organizational philosophy?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Thank you again, Gary, for coming on today. I think my question is going to be about Jayson Tatum. We've talked about a lot of guys so far. We've talked about Paul Pierce. We've talked about Kevin Garnett. You know, there's been so many people you've seen come through the Celtics organization. Where do you think Tatum, you know, talent-wise and just like the way that he is, where do you think he ranks among some of the best players that you've seen come through?
Boy, it's a great question. And it's not because he's not great. It's just there have been great players. And in my mind, he's got to win a title. Okay? So
Definitely.
The names that come to me naturally, John Havlicek. I mean, obviously Bill Russell, John Havlicek, Cowens, Bird, McHale, Pierce, then Tatum. Now, I think Tatum is as talented as Pierce. They're different kind of players a little bit. I'm not going to say he's as good as Bird. I'm not going to say that. I think Tatum is as good as John Havlicek, and John Havlicek was my boyhood hero. I worshipped him. So I think Tatum probably talent-wise, like straight talent, I always got to go Russell for, I always have to go, I go Russell, Bird. Then I think Tatum is with any of the others. You know what I mean?
Right.
Cowens, Havlicek, McHale, probably. Even though McHale was so dominant. We forget about that because he played with Bird. Sure. I'd say he's in that third level pool behind Bird and Russell.
What happens
if he wins a title?
Yeah.
If he wins a title, now you're talking. I think Jayson Tatum's maturation this season has been amazing. I think he deserves so much credit. I think he's been great. In far as passing the ball and all that. I just don't like the play call to him when it's a tight game.
Right.
Which needs to go every time.
Well, something I put on social media yesterday on our Instagram was actually that Tatum is 6th in the league for most 30-point games this year, averaging 28. His usage rate is 16th in the NBA. So I think for him, I mean, that's just a crazy thought to me because a guy that is scoring as much as he's scoring to be 16th in the league in usage, still producing, still scrutinized. I mean, that's something I've noticed with Tatum. It feels like as it's all-stars or superstars go in the NBA, he's the most scrutinized for some reason.
That's a great take. That's a great take. And when I grew up, the statistics you have available to you, I did not have. Define usage rate for me. Is that playing time combined with shooting percentage or something?
So usage rate is the amount of times the ball is in your hands when you're on the court. The percentage.
Okay. That's amazing. Now, see, that's a great stat. That's a great take because I do think the ball goes through his hands. I think he's passing the ball more, but that surprises me. I also think it's a great stat for the team.
Right.
I mean, do they have 11 losses now? Is it 11?
Yeah.
11.
Okay.
37 and 11 right now, guys.
You have 11 losses, and your best player is 16th. And that's a great number for the team.
Right.
That's a great number for that's a great take. That's a great stat. I look at it as a good thing because it means other guys are getting it done.
Right. No, for sure.
When you look at all the guys who are in the sphere of who everyone likes to talk about, Jalen Brunson, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Tyrese Halliburton, Trae Young, all these guys, they essentially dribble the ball more than anyone in the league. And that's why guys are fascinated. That's why people are fascinated with them. Not saying they aren't great players. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's one of my favorite players. He's one of the most efficient with the ball in his hands. But I do think you guys make a tremendous point on Jayson Tatum being super scrutinized with his usage percentage and also relative to the rest of the team. I think if Jayson Tatum in this year's Celtics team wins the title, I believe they're going to go down as an all-time club for sure in this era of basketball because even the other night, Gary, I completely agree with you on going down low, getting the 2, and then methodically building out to the 3 and letting the 3 ball fall to you more naturally within their team, because right now the team can play multiple different ways. Against Indiana the other day, they played 2 ways. They played their way, they played Indiana's way. They played up and down the court. We saw the score was 129, 124, but also near the end of the game, the Celtics were letting what came to them on offense and scoring buckets that way, whether it was off ball with Drew Holiday or just attacking the rim and finding that open 3. We saw those Derek White threes go down in the fourth quarter like no problem, 13 points on the night. But we obviously come on here and cover the Celtics every single game on post game, and we go through a routine every single night. And I was wondering that you kind of touched on it earlier, but in between the times when a team is bad, because you talked about coming up in Boston's not so golden age, going into the golden age, how is your coverage back when, say, you were on pregame or back when you were on NBC? How is the coverage different between a bad team and a good team? And was there more emphasis put on covering a good team? And was there more involvement around the behind the scenes in regards to meetings, or more people being involved for a good team relative to a bad team? Or was it more of the same?
Let me give you an example, and this will say it all. When they were a bad team, Donnie Marshall and I were doing the pregame show, and Donnie had just started, and we were about 5 minutes from air. We were in our 2 chairs, and our production director, Jim Burgoyne, 5 minutes to go, was finishing the painting of the set.
I can see it.
Yeah, right. Like now, so he's I said to him, I said, Jim, we gonna be all right? He's like, yeah, we'll be fine. He's down here low, he's finishing, and it was a green wall. It looked terrible, it was. And then Donnie and I came out, and we, the chairs were paid for by Bernie and Phil's because we played their commercials. Fast forward to them winning a championship. We're doing the show from the Ace Ticket Studio on Causeway Street that, I don't know, cost $1 million. I can't tell you. But it was the Ace Ticket Studio because it's all driven by, you guys know this, it's all driven by advertising. Right. So the more eyeballs you have, the more clicks, the more, the more rep, whatever the term is, the advertisements got to go up. So, that was the difference. And then we had people pounding on the window at us. And so when they were a bad team, we were in a studio with a guy just finishing the set. And then when they were a good team, we had this state-of-the-art studio on Causeway Street and thought we were rock stars. So there's no doubt. But it's all revenue generated. It's all money.
So essentially, the team's success is linked to the media's success.
No question. Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, let me tell you, when Tom Brady left, a lot of people in media sales were not happy.
Wait, I got to ask you about this. I know we're on a Celtics show now.
Yeah,
we kind of talked about this ahead of time. We're like, we don't want to talk about Patriots too much, but I do want to ask you, because there's a big Patriots moment coming up. What do you think the Patriots should do with the number 3 pick, assuming that the number 1 and number 2 pick is Caleb Williams and Drake May, and the Patriots don't trade up for one of those 2 players? What do you think they should do, even though this is a Celtics show?
Yeah, I know. And I will admit, when it comes to the draft, it's not my strength. I was always one of those guys that I liked it, but I didn't love it like people, where they know everything. And my point at this time is I think you need to get star players. I think you need to get talent. And they're a ways away. Don't let anybody kid you. So, someone maybe would say, let's trade down and let's get, a guard and a tackle and start to build. And that's what they used to do. And it just seems to me right now that in order to win in this league, you need playmakers. So if Marvin Harrison Jr., if you think he's a playmaker, and I guess people do, I mean, but, it's such a crapshoot. But I would go for the playmakers, and the Patriots haven't done that. Let's trade down. Let's get the guard. Let's go, let's get 5 good guys instead of 1 great guy. Well, it seems to me right now, if you're going to build, you have to have a great wide receiver or tight end. You have to have a great quarterback. You have to have a great pass rusher. I mean, God bless the secondary. With the way the game's called, it's so hard. But if you think this guy isn't, and I don't know if he is, maybe you guys know. I think
Right.
you take the star. You got to take the star because look at all the teams. I mean, at the end of the day, I know, you get San Francisco. They've got a great defense. Purdy's a lot better than I thought he would be. I'll tell you that right now. But they get Kittle. He's a stud. I don't think he's Kelsey, but he's a stud. And even Kansas City was hurt because they let some of the receivers go.
Right.
So I would take the playmaker. I would go for that's what I would do. But
I tend to agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a. I've got friends of mine that are like they're crazy. Like they know who's going in the 5th round. And I mean, I used to cover it, and Tanguay, you got to stay for the 5th round, and I'm like, oh, I need a nap. But it's a big business. The NFL draft is huge. People love it.
Huge marketing revenue from that. I think going quarterback would just be throwing another kid into another position where they're set up not to succeed behind a rookie coach or the defensive coordinator.
Me and Franco have had this conversation a lot. He's on the train of we shouldn't go with quarterback right away. I'm on the train of I don't know, Robert Kraft. He's getting into his 80s. I don't know how much patience that the ownership has over the entire organization.
The problem is, and I heard my buddy Felger talk about it the other day. Expecting this team to be competitive right away, they're not going to be.
Right.
They're just not going to be. And I think that you need to build. And I think if you get that wide receiver, you have to coach him up. You have to, get him acclimated to the league. Maybe you get a veteran. I'm not opposed to bringing Mac back and have him compete because I think Bill totally ruined that kid. I think he's okay. And I think that if you get a Marvin Harrison Jr., if you have Mac or you have another veteran quarterback, the job is to teach this kid how to play in the league. And then you continue to build. Then maybe next year you get the quarterback or the year after you get the quarterback. And then your wide receiver has 3 years in.
Right.
You got to throw the ball. I mean, I know that, look, McCaffrey, you can run. They can run. But you got to chuck it, man. So you got to chuck it. So that, I mean, but then again, when you look at quarterbacks, like look at the Jets. They look at all the guys that went before Mac.
Right.
I mean,
nothing. Literally nothing. Unless Trevor Lawrence, obviously he still has something.
Well, I forgot about him. No, he's a true starter. But, no, he's legit. I forgot about him. But like Fields,
everybody else, I totally.
Yeah, the guy from who's the kid that was with the Niners that's a backup.
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance. Yeah.
But Gary, you've covered the Patriots for many, many years and the Celtics for NBC, and you've worked with a lot of personalities during that time covering different teams.
Right.
Who was your favorite personality through the years or at different times?
I got a bunch of them.
Who's your favorite personality to work with?
Kevin Millar was great. Jonathan Papelbon was wonderful. I got to know. We did a lot of shows with Cinco Ocho. Mm-hmm. He was great. Tanguay. Last time I talked to him, I go, Pap, what are you doing? He goes, Tanguay, you Democrats. He goes, you guys all want to take away our guns. He's down there in Mississippi. They built a bunker. But boy, what a gamer. Oh, I had a conversation with Papelbon one time. We were in a studio. They were thinking about making him a starter or something. I go, no. And he goes, Tanguay, he goes, you think I should be? You should think I'd be a closer. I go, absolutely, you should be a closer because you're crazy. You're crazy. You got to be a closer. You're coming in. You got men on first and third, 2 out. 1-run lead. I want you. Because you're crazy. Absolutely, and he was great. So those two guys were great. Matt Light. I used to go to when we used to do interviews with him. I went to Matt's house. He'd go out back, do some target shooting with his bow and arrow. Vince Wilfork was great. And if the player was hurt, like Vince and Matt both had like leg issues, and if there was like a cast on their foot, it was like, do not show the foot. Belichick would if that cast made it on TV, Bill would be out of his mind. Now he's out of a job, but those guys were great. Those guys were Copen, they were great. They called me Gare Bear. They used to go, hey, Gare Bear, the offensive line. Loved them. Vrabel was great. Vrabel would really bust your balls. Rodney, I went to Rodney's house in Atlanta, talked to him. The thing with Rodney is, I said when he went through that injury, one of the injuries, I don't know if it was the one who was busted for HGH or not, and I said it's going to take him a year to come back. And these guys all watch. And Rodney saw that, and he said I was his motivation. He was back in 8 months. Came in studio, Tanguay, you still going to be out of here? I said, Rodney, I was just trying to motivate you. It was all part of my plan. But those guys were great. But here's the thing, though. They're all great people, but they were also winning.
Right.
When you're losing and you're criticizing people, it doesn't go so well.
Right.
This kind of gets me into another point on this question, is that were there any personalities, say, from athletes that were different behind the scenes with the media than it was, say, out portrayed in mainstream media? Like nowadays, we might see an athlete,
right,
Tatum at his press conference, but he might be completely different when he's behind the scenes off camera.
That's a great question. One of the things that I do recognize is that even though I was friendly with some players, they still had their guard up around me. They weren't going to be, I wasn't like one of the boys.
Right.
So they were all pretty, the one thing I would say about Brady is Brady would never swear in a press conference. Brady would always say the right thing. Very and Brady, I was told, I don't know this, but I was told off the field, he's one of the guys, you know what I mean?
Right.
He liked to drink. He liked to have a good time. This is before he got healthy and all that, but
right.
He liked to have a good time and all that stuff. I do know of 2 expatriates, I will not name names, who were buddies who used to race they bought new sports cars when they got drafted, and they used to race their sports cars on Route 1 by the stadium.
Jeez.
And they probably had 75 speeding tickets.
Oh my God.
And they'd just bring them in and they'd give them to the head of security. And he'd call the state troopers and they'd take care of it. That's stuff like that. But no, that's a really good question. I don't think that I've, I don't think that I've really, I don't think I've run into that where a light goes on and it just, that's a great question. And I'm sure there are players that, when they say all the right things. I mean, I think that players are human, and when the camera goes on now, they're also trained and savvy that they have to say and do the right things and be polite and so forth. But overall, I think I got their personalities.
Yeah. So I have one question about the NBA trade deadlines coming up. Not only do the Celtics need to make a move, it feels like there's a lot of teams out there that need to make a move. But I want to think about what does the vibe around the team feel like when a big move is on the way, or we've saw Marcus Smart and Robert Williams get traded this offseason, guys that have been part of your team for so long, they have to move on, or they sign a big free agent guy. What is the vibe around the team when those kind of guys become available, they get traded, or
right? Well, the older you are, the more you're around the league, you become accustomed to it. I think that I don't have any inside information, but I think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call. I think it was a wake-up call. I don't think Marcus was the leader that people thought he was. He was very vocal to the media, but I'm not saying he was a bad teammate. I just don't think that everybody followed Marcus. I think Marcus was well-liked. But when they traded Marcus, I think that was new to them. And that was okay, well, this is a business. And you learn that when Kendrick Perkins got traded to Oklahoma City and he ended up getting a lot of money, he cried. He was heartbroken. And it later hurt the Celtics because they needed him in the playoffs because Shaq got hurt. And I remember Kevin Garnett consoling Perkins saying, you got to get your money. The Celtics were set up. They weren't going to give Perk the money he made in Oklahoma City. So Perk made a lot of money, which wonderful guy. I love the man. And I was happy to see him get paid. I was really sorry to see him go. But the veterans on that team knew it was a business. So that team had been around. So while Perk wasn't accustomed to it, the veterans were. But for Marcus leaving this team, I think was a wake-up call to them. Like, we're out to win. We're not taking 5-3. We're not going over 5 from 3 in 2 minutes and play.
Yeah, this is the time. And I guess to piggyback off that, what do you think this Celtics team needs in particular to do at the trade deadline?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they would just need some more bench help. I think if Porzingis can stay healthy, they're really good, and I think they can win it. I guess you would need another big in case Porzingis went down. And he's a good player, but if you could get some help there, maybe where you found someone who could give you 12 points a game down low every game if Porzingis goes down, easier said than done. And just give them some more bench help. But if they're healthy, man, I think this is the year.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, they played like crap against Denver that night, and they only lost by 2. They went awful.
And there was a terrible call down the stretch.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, I mean, that bothered me because I wanted them to beat Denver, and what are you going to do? I'm still a fan. When they lose, I don't like it.
Right.
But I mean,
It's not even a confirmation game too. It's like we beat the defending.
Yes, that's what I was. Send a message, but Brown and Tatum had awful shooting nights, and they almost won. So if they're healthy, I think they're getting a ring.
Definitely, and I think this is the year they ponied up for it, and hopefully we're seeing Banner 18 in July. But this is probably as much time as we can get for you, Gary. I would like to thank you so much for having us on, and we appreciate it. Thank you for watching, everyone. This was Celtics Talk Weekly, and as always, go Celtics.